In this video, I'll recap what happened the last time we saw Nobara Kugisaki, how and why I think she's still alive, what she's been up to, and how I think her reintroduction during the Culling Games arc will go. Before I get started, I'd like to ask you to smack that like button and subscribe. With that said, let's jump in. So for the recap, I'm sure I don't have to remind you guys, the wounds likely haven't healed completely yet, but I'm going to rip off that band-aid anyway. We last saw Nobara facing off against Mahito along with Yuji, and the two of them were actually giving him the hands when Mahito had the bright idea to fake retreat from Nobara, leading her back towards Yuji, but swapping bodies with himself, since he had split into two. So that the one that would now face Nobara would be the copy capable of idle transfiguration. Nobara was caught off guard by a blind spot Mahito's clone created when she was chasing him, so she wouldn't see the swap go off, and she got an idle transfiguring slap to the face. After that, it's hard to really say for sure what happened, but it appears that Nobara's face kinda exploded from the transfiguration, but some people speculate that maybe she attempted to use her own curse technique on her face, maybe as a way to try and kill Mahito's curse technique inside of her. I don't know though. That part probably isn't what happened, but Mahito did comment that someone like Nanami would take multiple touches to actually kill. After Nobara is seemingly eliminated, Arata Anita shows up with Todo and tells Yuji that he has suspended her damage with his curse technique. Damage hasn't fully been healed, and she wasn't breathing, nor did she have a pulse, but he did say the chance of her survival isn't 0%. Afterwards, when the Shibuya incident is concluded and we see Yuji meet up with Yuta and Megami, Yuji asks Megami about Nobara's condition, to which she doesn't reply. He just gives him a silent treatment. Yuji says, I get it. After that, we haven't heard a single peep about Nobara's condition. With a recap out of the way, I'll talk about why I think she's still alive now and where she's been. So I don't have any concrete evidence that she's alive, I'll be straight up with you there, but I don't believe that Gege is the type of author to do things without a reason. For example, the Culling Games are taking place across these 10 colonies in Japan, and only about 4 of them have been explored so far, but not all of them. For this next part, I ended up doing a lot of research before remembering that the JJK data book came out in 2021 and how it had some information on Nobara, so at first I looked through the chapters to try and find out where Nobara was from, but there wasn't a definite answer. I went back and looked through the earlier chapters, remembering that Nobara is from a village out in the boonies, and I checked the chapters where she's first introduced. In chapter 3, we see that she arrived at Morioka Station, and it took her 4 hours to get there by train. She's headed to Tokyo, which is southwest of Morioka Station, passing through Miyagi, which is where Yuta's battles took place in the Sendai colony stretch of chapters. If you look at the map of the colonies, you can see that there are 2 colonies north of Sendai, and so that would mean that Nobara is clearly from one of them. I had become the guy in the math questions, looking up stuff like, if someone travels for 4 hours north of Morioka Station, where would they arrive? And it was ridiculous. I didn't really get an answer. Nothing good that I could actually use. I figured that there had to be a better way, and that's when I remembered the data book, which clearly just states that Nobara's birthplace is somewhere in Tohoku. Anyway, needless to say, I ended up wasting a lot of time searching, but since she had arrived in Morioka, it would mean that she's likely from Aomori. It's possible she's from Hokkaido, but I doubt it, since it doesn't look like the story will go there, as it's been excluded from the Culling Games. Looking at the information from the data book in chapter 125, we learned that Nobara got into Jujutsu High School based on a recommendation from her grandmother after they fought about it for a while. Nobara's grandmother hasn't been revealed in the story yet, but it sounds like Nobara wouldn't have been able to get in if it wasn't for her putting in a good word for her. This would mean that Granny Kugisaki is likely someone powerful in some way. The data book tells us that her grandma is a sorcerer and that Nobara actually learned her straw doll technique from her. She was already sort of an active sorcerer in her hometown while working under her grandma, and even had knowledge of what Black Flash was prior to ever coming to Tokyo. The next part is my own speculation, but her granny might know Gojo, since she was specifically able to request that Gojo and company meet her at Harajuku Station. Gojo's own words were, she asked us to meet her here. So all of this to say, at the end of Shibuya incident took place, I think Granny Kugisaki heard about what happened to her granddaughter, got furious, and took her back home to try and heal her, maybe with some sort of voodoo ritual stuff. It's a far-fetched idea, but Nobara did say that her village was very strange, and her grandma teaching her the straw doll technique is kind of voodoo-y and kind of lends to grandma being into that spiritual stuff. As far as what she's been doing, I honestly think Nobara's been unconscious, but at home, in her home village. I believe one of the next colonies will show her awaken, and we'll spend some time in her village. The next thing I'll talk about is how I think she'll be reintroduced, but I also want to start that with a question. Remember when Kenjaku was shown visiting people in their sleep and escorting them out of the Culling Game zones, allowing them the opportunity to evacuate so that they weren't forced to participate if they didn't want to? What if Nobara was in a state where her body had been healed, but she was in a coma and Kenjaku came to her in a dream, and that sort of snapped her out of the coma, but she was still resting or just unable to wake up for some other unexplained Jujutsu Kaisen related reason? I don't know, there may be holes to it, but it's just something to think about. I think it'd be cool if, Nobara would have got visited by Kenjaku in her sleep. I said before, but I think that Nobara's colony is coming up very soon, but I think that won't actually happen until communication with other colonies is established. The way I'm envisioning Nobara's return happening is maybe at the end of a chapter as a cliffhanger, right after the rule to chat with other colonies has been made, and the last speech bubble appearing on a black page just saying, "Itadori, are you there?" Leaving us to wonder who this person is. I think afterward we would see what would happen in the last day or so in the Aomori colony, and get this scene where we see a lot of Jujutsu sorcerers maybe circled around Nobara doing some sort of healing ritual or something to try and wake her up, but this whole process is interrupted when the soldiers appear. I don't think that Nobara's colony will be filled with powerhouse characters like Kashimo and the guys that Yuta fought in Sendai, but I think Nobara's colony will serve more as a sort of reset point, giving the next chunk of the games a starting line to take off from. I think most assume that the mini arc that we just had concluded with Kenjaku served as a midway point, and all of the fights leading up to it got more intense as time went on. Having Nobara possibly fighting soldiers along with curses could be a great second half opening act. I do think this will be where Gege really shows off his horror flexing with new curses that appear in the night along with this new threat from the armies showing up. I'm thinking maybe they're working on Nobara when the sounds of helicopters in the distance followed by gunshots from rifles, and we see army guys taking out civilians and random Jujutsu sorcerers with some resistance, of course. With all the commotion, I can see Nobara finally waking up while all the chaos is going on, and maybe her grandma telling her she has to run, but we know Nobara is a hothead, so she would probably try and stay and fight for a while. I want to see a cool scene where Nobara is like chased into the woods or a barn or something, and these soldier guys, unfamiliar with the lay of the land, thinking that they're, hunting her, and actually stumble their way into a trap, and in the dead of night, when they think they've got her, they see nails flying out of pitch black darkness, and Nobara manages to get away from these soldiers without being captured. After all of that, we could also have a scene with Nobara visiting her old friend Sayori's house to find out, maybe the secret of what happened back then, why her house was vandalized, and what caused her to leave. Eventually, after a night of craziness, Nobara would get the alert that a new rule was added, allowing for communication with other players, and she probably pieced together that she can, look at the Kokone and find a list of players and see Yuzi's name, and that's when she would probably try and reach out to him. After that, with Nobara's reintroduction to the story, I could see her becoming of sort of a combat healer or something. Not exactly a healer, but an offensive healer with her curse technique, maybe being able to cancel out the transfiguration that was done to the humans. So people who were forced to, fight in the culling games against their will by Kenjaku, like Megami's sister, maybe she could hit them with the nails of her curse technique or something and take them out of that state and, free people, or offensively take down, bad guys who are trying to take them out. So of course, none of these things are guaranteed to happen. Gege could never show her again, but I do think that she'll be showing up soon. Let me know what you think down below, and comment if you agree or disagree with anything that I said here, or if you have your own theories about what's going on with Nobara, let me know below. I'll be making more Jujutsu Kaisen videos pretty soon, and videos for a couple other stories, so be on the lookout for that. Hit that sub button for more. Thanks for watching. See you next time.